Hello. So this is the second video on project scheduling that you would do in the planning stage of a project. In the first video, you'll remember that we looked at the steps in scheduling and I showed you what a network diagram looks like and what a contingency is. We also explored what resources are and how they can be primary or secondary. In this video, we'll translate that information into a Gantt chart. Gantt charts were invented by Henry Gantt. He was a mechanical engineer who first used a Gantt chart in 1910. The tool was used on major engineering projects like the Hoover Dam. We now see Gantt charts in use on almost every project, although to be honest, I've never seen a project that doesn't have one, but there's a first time for everything. One of the reasons for their popularity is that they include lots of information, and yet they're so easy to understand. You don't need to have completed project management concepts in order to get the general idea of what a Gantt chart is showing you. Okay, let's have a look at what information a basic Gantt chart shows you about a project. Here's one that was completed as part of an assignment a few years ago. Firstly, down the left-hand side of the Gantt chart, there are activities, which should have come from your work breakdown structure. You should have worked out by now that each project document you write relies upon information from a previous project document. That way, all your documents have consistent information, and they're more likely to lead to a successful project completion. So the activities identified in your work breakdown structure are those you list down the side of your Gantt chart. You can also list the activity IDs from your work breakdown structure in a separate column to the activities. Secondly, each activity is represented by a bar on the chart. The bar is proportional to the duration of the activity. We worked out how to calculate the duration of an activity in the previous video. So a one-day activity is a short bar. A multiple day activity is a bit longer. So you can see immediately roughly how long activities take. An important part of the Gantt chart is the timescale at the top of the chart. You can choose whatever timescale is appropriate for your project, whether it's hours, days, weeks, or months. The only criteria is that the scale is the same on the chart. You can't chop and change the scale from hours to weeks halfway along the chart. What else can we see on this Gantt chart? Well, remember those milestones? Here's a quick recap. We represent milestones on a Gantt chart by black diamonds. They're not given a duration or a name. How many milestones a project has depends on its duration and complexity, amongst other things. I place milestones at the start of a project to represent the moment in time that the work starts, and one at the end to represent the moment that all the activities are complete. In between, you have milestones when a key amount of work has been done, for example when a deliverable has been achieved. Now let's populate a very simple Gantt chart with activities. Start with listing the activities on the left. Here I've just numbered some activities for speed, but you would use the label and code from your work breakdown structure. Refer back to your network diagram for the logical order that the activities take place in. So let's start by adding the duration of the first activity, which starts on day 1 and takes 1 day. Now we add the second activity, and we know it starts immediately after the first activity finishes and takes 4 days. The third activity starts as soon as the second activity has finished, and it takes 2 days. Can you see what's happening here? We are assuming that each activity starts as soon as the predecessor finishes, and we are assuming that the activities happen one at a time. And here's a completed, very simple Gantt chart. We can make Gantt charts more complex, and when you use Microsoft Project or any of the other project management software that is available, you'll see that Gantt charts can also display the relationships between activities using arrows, the relationships between activities on the critical path, which in this case are red. You'll be able to see that some activities are grouped into phases, and also we can have a more complicated version of the timescale across the top. This Gantt chart shows months, quarters and years, but in Microsoft Project and other software you can change that timescale to suit your project. You get to play with Microsoft Project and other scheduling software later on in your degrees. For the purposes of project management concepts, we just want you to show the activities, the activity code from the work breakdown structure, the timescale, the activity duration, phases and milestones. We don't want you to use Microsoft Project to create a Gantt chart for any assignment. In fact, we forbid it. Microsoft Project is the subject of a different course. In this course, we need to know that you understand how to construct a Gantt chart before you ask software to do it for you. Because if you input the wrong information into the software, then the schedule could end up wrong too. In these two videos on scheduling, we've looked at the processes of scheduling, creating network diagrams, creating Gantt charts, and the use of contingency and the use of resources. These activities all take place in the planning phase of a project. The next video will look at what we do with all this information during the implementation phase of a project, so I look forward to seeing you then.